This is our first ever part of the Cosmere Reread series that we're trying over here on the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Study. Fair warning, this is actually not a spoiler-free podcast. Not really a podcast at all, so that'd be really disingenuous. If you haven't read all the way through the Cosmere up until Rhythm of War, you might not want to check this thing out. You might want to wait till after you've done that. We will go into spoilers. Additionally, we will not, however, be going into anything that have been in the previews for the various secret projects Brandon has posted at the time of this video. Brandon has just finished up his Kickstarter campaign, 41 million. That is insane. So just be aware, we won't be going into that or the prologue for Stormlight 5. So with that all out of the way, let's get started with the prologue through chapter 3 of Alloy of Law. So I'm always intrigued by this book series altogether because of the fact that Brandon didn't even really plan on ever this being a thing. Originally, Mistborn was supposed to be only a trilogy of trilogies, and this book was only supposed to be a small thing. I pulled up this quote from... Gosh, where was this? Wrapping up my time off. This is a blog post that he wrote in fall of 2010, it looks like. And he wrote, "The second thing I tried writing was a short story set in the Mistborn world a few hundred years after the Hero of Ages. This one just didn't work. The characters weren't gripping for me. More importantly, they just didn't feel like a Mistborn book. I got about one scene into it. As I was working on it, however, I did some world building on this time period in Scadrial's history. I got to thinking about what was wrong with the short story and why it didn't feel right. This grew into an outline regarding a completely different story, with no overlap characters that set in the same time period. I nurtured this and started writing, and it felt right from the get-go. I had the right tone, so I kept writing, expanding my outline, letting the story grow as big as it wanted to be. In the end, I had an 85,000-word novel that I named Mistborn, Alloy of Law. This was the first time we heard the title. I'm very excited about the story, and I offered it to Tor for publication with one condition. They had to put it out in 2011. I've mentioned before that I was worried I wasn't going to have a book released for you in 2011 with the extra time A Memory of Light was going to take. Alloy of Law turned out so well that I wanted to share it with everyone and use it to fill the gap between Towers of Midnight and A Memory of Light. I just find it interesting that this story was... just came out of nowhere, and we're now getting beyond more than a trilogy out of it. We're getting 4 books. Finn only got 3. I don't know, kind of interesting. I'd very much like to hear from Brandon what that book or the short story that wasn't working. I'd be very interested to hear what that was. It'd be good. With the background of the book out of the way, let's get into Alloy of Law. One thing I'd like to start off here is the name of the city that we're in, Feltrel. Looks like Felt moved up in the world in Scadrial. Has a city named after him. Now, it's a ghost town, so didn't work out too well, it seems, but it existed. It makes me... I'm really curious as to what he did during the days of the... what was it? The Final Emperor? Is that what Spook's title is? I can't remember. I'm suddenly blanking. But, I mean, we see him come Roshar time, so we know he's been up to something, but very, very interesting that he has a city named after him. Next thing, as far as world building goes, the Twinborn are such an interesting concept to get to explore. The only person who we really got to see play with... both those sets of powers at the same time was Marsh in the books. We knew that the Lord Ruler could do that, but outside of his aging, we never really saw him do much of the Farukami. But Marsh we saw, utilizing the fact he could be bigger, stronger, faster, harder, better. And coming up with the Twinborn is a very interesting concept. It lets you do things story-wise that you couldn't do. It's very important that that's the case, because... without Mistborn in the world, these characters are far more limited than Vin and Kelsier were. Combining, I had always been fascinated with the weight change as a power, and combining it with the fact that being a coin shot, things weight matters. So being like as soon as I read this the first time and saw that he had both those, I was like, ooh, that's potent. I also love that apparently there's a name for each one, and the community has taken to trying to name each and every one. There's some good ones. If you go look out there, you can find them. I love hearing this prologue, seeing the interplay between Wax and Lessie. It's the ending for magic, but it shows why they work as a couple. I already reminded you about spoilers, but if you didn't listen for the warning of spoilers, buckle up. Knowing that Lessie is a Kandra, and knowing that she was sent by Harmony to sort of watch over him and protect him, it makes their entire interplay very interesting. One, it makes her sort of confidence in the face of all this danger when she has no powers, quote unquote. It makes it make a lot more sense that she feels a little indestructible, as she kind of is. It's hard to kill a Kandra. They ain't easy to kill. But they work as a couple. They work as a couple. It makes the ending so sad. Bloody Tan. Where do we begin with this psychopath? Holy cow. I didn't expect first of all, the fact that he is a mortician. Like the old West mortician, so creepy with the wide-brimmed hat. They always had the long, gaunt face, and I believe, if memory serves me correct, he does too. Man, he's creepy. Putting people as displays. Oh, just that line. What was his line that he speaks? Oh, what was it? Each life is a performance, but we are not the performers. We are the puppets. I have seen God, lawkeeper. I have seen death himself with the nails in his eyes. I have seen the survivor who is life. Other men wonder, but I know. I know I'm a puppet. All are. Creepy. You think it's true? Do you think it is true that he saw all three of them? That he saw Harmony. I suppose he didn't say Harmony. He said God. Now, God is typically implied to be Harmony on this world. Maybe he's seen Rel? Could be. Seen Death, Marsh, and the Survivor. Well, we know who that is, and we know he's been kicking around. Oh, Kelsier, you irascible scoundrel. We know from a word of Brandon that he wasn't burning Bendaloy when the gunshot went off. And Brandon further implies in that scene that he is not an allomancer. So if that's true, if Brandon wasn't speaking out of turn, which we all know words of Brandon are not full canon, there's layers to canonism. But assuming that statement's true, how on earth did he do what he did? Interesting. It's something that's been bugging me about this entire thing, because it would be so easy to explain if he were, say, an Electrum misting. Or maybe maybe he was some sort of Feruchemist. Maybe he was a luck Feruchemist. Chromium stores fortune. Maybe he did something with that. I mean, that would technically qualify if Brandon says he's not an allomancer. I don't think that's what it is. Something that's been going on in the background, you may or may not be aware of. Brandon has been talking a lot about how they're going to be retconning a little bit how Adium works. Basically, the people who thought they were Adium mistings were actually Electrum mistings. That the thing that we consider Adium is actually Adium Electrum hybrid alloy. The reason this is important is one of the things they were thinking is that by the rules of their universe, they felt anyone should be able to burn Atium. Anyone from Scadrial, anyone. Just because it's a god metal, so it's different. Because it's for the same reason anyone can burn, or I guess it wouldn't be anyone from anyone at all. Anyone could burn lerasium. Like, it wouldn't make sense for you to be able to burn one but not the other as a common person. And now this causes all sorts of issues. But what that does is if what was going on in the pits of Haston was a naturally occurring adium-electrum alloy, what does pure adium actually do? Pure preservation, lerasium, connected you to him in such a way you became a Mistborn. What does burning adium do? Well, the thought might be we've seen this effect before. When we see Elend duralumin burn adium, or in what we now know to be electrum adium alloy. And it lets him see how everything is going to unfold, how it's all connected. From all the sounds of it, Bloody Tan was, maybe creepy because he's a mortician, but was never off. Let's say he burns pure adium, though, that he somehow found pure adium. And he gets to see how it's all connected. Would seeing how it's all connected let you perhaps get a vision of how it's all connected, letting you see God, death, the survivor? Would letting you do that let you know at the exact moment how it is that you're going to survive and put Lessie in the path of the bullet? Or maybe more importantly, see that he's supposed to do that so that Wax will go back to Elendel where he's needed. Now, I'm not trying to make out Bloody Tan as a hero or anything because dude done kill some folk. And so, yeah, not a good guy. But it also might explain why he's so unhinged as well. Maybe mainlining Ruin is not healthy for the soul. Who knows? Who knows? We do know that he wasn't being manipulated by Harmony directly at the very minimum from words of Brandon, so it's a big question. All I know is, man, that is a depressing start to a story. Oh, that is a depressing start to a story. When we get to chapter 1, we see Wax trying to reintegrate himself into the high society of Scadrial. I love that he's a Ladrian. I love that he is the ancestor of Alrian and Breeze Ladrian. Or what was Breeze's actual name? It was gosh, I'm blanking. Edgard. That's right. Edgard Ladrian. I love that he's a descendant of them because I find Alrian and Breeze as a couple to be hilarious. I just love that they're both blatantly manipulating each other and neither one cares that the other one's doing it. It's a very unique couple dynamic. That along with all the robbing the cradle jokes. Breeze, you dog. Something about Wax that I found very interesting is he sort of reminds me of a half step between Vin and Elend. In the story. Like Elend, he has a pretty high disdain for these parties, how lavish they are, and doesn't like high society as general, doesn't fit in with them. More of a loner in these social circles, but having a duty to get that done. Vin, on the other hand, liked the parties. Vin liked seeing the beauty of it and seeing people happy, given her background. But at the same time, she was very shy, didn't like being at the center of attention, and would look for excuses to escape things, and loved being in the mists and the thrill of moving about throughout it. So seeing him escape the party, very both Vin and Elend thing to do. Very rude, very rude. Seeing him move through the night was very interesting. I really liked seeing the Iron Spine tower. Was Iron Spine Tower? Iron Spine. Yeah, I think it's the Iron Spine Tower. Anyway, point is, like, seeing the city, Elendel, slowly rise above the mists. I definitely feel the Iron Spine, and I think it was Tekiel Tower was the other one, slowly rising above the mists and trying to get higher and higher. It's very reminiscent of, it was the Empire State Building, and I don't remember what the other one was in New York, but not quite Old West time, a little bit beyond that, but there was this race to be the the tallest one, and they both kept in the papers saying, "Oh no, it's going to be this tall. Oh no, it's going to be this tall." It was very reminiscent of that. Brandon clearly took inspiration from the tale of that. And I like seeing Wax trying to climb it, and he's cheating using gunshots. But hey, when you can manipulate your weight, suddenly you get to throw yourself about sort of like a video game character using recoil as a movement tool. Very interesting. Finally, we get to him trying to help the cops at night, and his PTSD really showing through. And how could it not? He and Lessie work together like a well-oiled machine, but suddenly he's the one responsible for her. It's not his fault, but he's the one who pulled the trigger. How could that not shatter you at some level? Like, the woman you love, holy cow. The emotional trauma he's gone through, and doesn't really seem to be letting himself fully mourn her. Look, he's an Old West sheriff. He buries his pain, buries it deep. We'll see it. Oh, we'll see it come out. See it come out in book 2. That's for sure. But I liked that being sort of the impetus for when he gets home, and him giving his guns to Talaumi. I forget how to pronounce his name. His butler. Giving it to him, being like, "Yeah, hide these." And literal Chekhov's gun. Back later. You're welcome. Oh, it's such a good payoff. Brandon's had some good payoffs, but the plot twist of the guns, that the help comes, the divine help comes at the end of the book, and it all comes from here. Very clever. Very clever, Brandon. We see what you're up to. All right, chapter 2. Wax is definitely trying to make better impressions in society, trying to be a good house lord, which that's good. People do, like, Talam isn't wrong when he tells him a lot of people are counting on you to make sure that things go well. It is the positive side of the concept of an aristocracy, is that they're supposed to be better trained, and they're supposed to be capable of leading. So they're counting on you. And so Wax takes it very seriously. And I like that about him, that he's not casual with this responsibility. On the opposite side of being casual about things, we finally get Wayne's entrance, which, holy cow, it's chapter 2. So how does it feel that we waited too long to get Wayne's entrance? Wayne is, sorry, I'm fighting the hiccups. Oh dear. One moment. All right, I think I beat the hiccups. Wayne's entrance is glorious. And frankly, clever, the way Brandon does it, because he's able to show using Wayne, a couple different things. One, he shows that Wayne is a master of disguise and accents. Does a very good job putting him in a low-stakes situation, letting us see this happen right there. It lets us see a little bit of his eccentricities, and it also lets us see his very unique allomancy. We hadn't seen the bubbles come Era 1. Those were one of the medals that we didn't have. And so getting to see it again in a low-stakes situation is very good, because it lets us see what is this thing capable of, so we can sort of mentally prepare ourselves in the middle of battle for how this is going to be used. I love Wayne's clearly meddlesome. I love he annoys the butler. And how could Wayne not annoy a butler? He is both a social and physical person who would bring dirt into the hallway, and he's bringing back old bad habits. Now, knowing that Talon was working for the set, but also likes Wax, puts him in an interesting situation of hating Wayne, because Wayne is also the one who is leading Wax back into bad habits, which could get him in trouble, which he doesn't want for Wax. Wax is someone he likes. And so I love Wayne's entrance here. Very good entrance. Oh, Wayne steals every scene he's in. I like meeting the Harms family. We get her first looks at Jackson, of course, but then Marcy and Steris. I was always intrigued because a lot of people did not like Steris when the book started. I'm not going to claim I liked her, but I didn't read her as someone to be hated. She always struck me as someone who was a bit off, and so I didn't read it as coldness. I read her as neurodivergent from the very beginning, partially because it's a Brandon book, and Brandon likes exploring that space. And so I sort of always read her like that. But I love the detective mindset of Wax telling there's something off about this situation between Marcy, Steris, and Jackson. That something's going on. It doesn't help in the middle of all of it. Wayne is over here like, yes, he needs a firm hand, and just being Wayne and just having so much fun at Wax's expense. But then he shows off in the middle of conversation using a time bubble to have a quick side conversation without them seeing it. Aluminum bullet. Which, I mean, because we know what aluminum does in the Cosmere, the idea of an aluminum bullet, a literal, it's actually not a literal, it's actually an anti-magic bullet. But it feels like a magic bullet in this universe. That's a scary concept. Ooh, aluminum bullets. That said, it is a bit of a challenge because aluminum is a soft metal, so not very good for bullets. So the metallurgic work it would have taken to get an aluminum bullet to be usable, impressive stuff. Very impressive stuff. Man, aluminum bullets, scary. Just their existence, a very scary concept. I love it. Before I go on, Steris here, knowing what we know now, she's showing her preparedness, but also without knowing knowing her father's background, that he was a philanderer. It suddenly puts her putting in the contract allowances for infidelity in marriage in a very different light. And it definitely would color her view of marriage as a very transactional thing in this world. Very sad in retrospect that her father's weakness, taints her in that way. But we get to see that thaw over the course of the book, so it's good. But it paints that particular part in a very different light, and one you're just like, oh, Jackson. I mean, we got Marcy out of it, so, at least there's that. Although that starts to sound like a justification for infidelity. Hey, if you cheat on your wife, you might get a really cool half-sister, or not half-sister, but new daughter out of... that doesn't... We at the Sandersonian Institute do not condone infidelity in marriage, even if it will sometimes result in a really cool character. All right, we are finally to chapter 3, where Wax is talking about the Vanishers and looking into it and starting to fall into habits of trying to figure out what's going on. And I love seeing this part of Wax. I love seeing him do the research. I love seeing him draw conclusions. I love seeing him figuring out what this means for the rival houses and how they were clearly holding off due to a scam where they were getting to get out of paying certain, I think it was tariffs of some kind. Very classic detective work, and it's the part of the old school lawman that a lot of people do not appreciate. They don't appreciate the book work that goes into it, the studying of ledgers. It's why that when Steris and Wax do start to bond, it is over detailed bookwork. It's something that Wax doesn't realize he's actually very good at. He doesn't think of it as bookwork, he thinks of it as research. But I liked seeing him starting to scratch that itch with the Vanishers and seeing Talaum, however you say his name. I don't think I'm saying that correct, but I'm also too lazy to go look it up. I mean, the biggest question at the end of or at the start of this book would be what's Sazed up to? By the end of the first era, he's holding the powers of deity in twain. I believe it's the Mistborn Secret History line. He's God. In fact, he started a religion based around not worshiping him. In a lot of ways, it reminds me of sort of the idea of Confucianism, where there's not a central deity figure. There's just tenets of religion. And it makes a lot of sense for Wax, who is a child of two worlds, to follow the path. Because Sazed is also a man of two worlds, and one of them also being Eris. The ideas of pathism are very Zen in nature. And I think Brandon even mentions that in his annotations to this chapter. But I love that the prayer uses a hemolytic spike. Dark, but canonical. We know you can whisper to people through earrings. That's a slightly central plot point in the past. Just slightly. I like how Wax is struggling, trying to decide what he should do. And he keeps thinking of things in such binary terms. I can either be a good house lord or I can be a good lawman. And he sees them as two things that can't be done at the same time. But in his prayer, Harmony sort of pushes him to be both, to not shun one in favor of the other. I think this is actually a really good lesson in life. I think we tend to think false binaries. And a lot of times that the binary nature of it is sort of made up in our own head, that we definitely can do both. It might be hard, but we definitely can do both. Wax has a false binary, and when your name is Harmony, I think getting people to stop seeing things as a false binary would be an important thing for you as a god. And so I love Sazed sort of pushing him. Do both. All right. Now, here's the part where if you are a patron of the Sandersonian Institute of Cosmere Studies, we will read your questions and, and your comments over the reread and see if we can't answer them or agree or just comment on maybe things you noticed. From the professor, he quotes Bloody Tan's big line, and he asks his question: "How did I miss? I have seen the survivor on the first read through." He's dropping a lot, and it's a really creepy scene, Professor. You can be forgiven for missing a line or two. Plus, at that point, we think Kelsier's dead. Secret History hadn't come out at that point. Invita asks, "Is there anything you noticed on a Cosmere level that you haven't noticed on prior reads?" I would say yes, but not because I'm any more, better than I was before. I'd have to go back to the ADM discussion that Brandon is having out in public. That clearly, he's having that discussion for a reason. It's clearly important for some reason. He and Peter Ahlstrom are discussing it for some reason. So it's clearly important for the Lost Metal. So I have a feeling that it's going to be important. So I think that's, or I'm sticking my stamp on stamp motion. I don't own a stamp. I should. Maybe I should just buy a stamp. Q10 Fanatic. Wax says that Elendel has a population of 5 million. Do we know if that's bigger than Earth cities at a similar time period? How good is Elendel's infrastructure? This was a good question, not one I had considered. Baggins, or Bill, is also known. Look, I'm looking at people's screen names on the Discord. I need you to get all the way off my back about that. Bill did some research on that and found out that in 1890, London had a population of about 5.5 million. So That puts Ellendale on par with London at about the same time. And that actually makes a lot of sense because we do know that Wax and Wayne take a lot of inspiration with Sherlock Holmes style stories for obvious reasons. I mean, how can it not? So I don't know. I just thought that was an interesting detail that Baggins found. Clearly, Brandon did his research. It's at this point our questions thread in the Discord devolved into a discussion on the show Bridgerton from Netflix, and I don't quite remember why. I just remembered it took over the entire thread for quite some time, and I had no clue what was happening that entire conversation. So for those of you who think we only go on tangents during the podcast, no, that happens in the Discord as well, and it's frankly the best reason to join the Discord. Just become a patron, become a member of the Discord. I forgot the final thing on the Bridgerton thing. I don't know why I keep bringing it up. Q10, I sort of just said like, yeah, so comments on the prologue. If we could, I'm trying to steer it back because I need help with this. The hand should go up here for that effect. I don't know why it went down here. Who am I talking to? A very tall person. Apparently, I don't want any of the noise going downward. I said, so I'm just like, yeah, so do that. And then Q10 Fanatic. Sorry, I was trying to be helpful originally. And man, if that's not a phrase for my life, I was trying to be helpful at the start of things. Yeah, that's a thing. Final note from Q10 Fanatic. So one thing that is sticking out to me is the grief that Wax is going through. He's throwing himself into this new job and his new life as Lord Waxillium, this new marriage, but as soon as he thinks of Lessie, he freezes in the gun. It's a very adult kind of theme for an older hero. No teenage saviors here. Very true, and this is one of the things I find very interesting about this story compared to the old one. Vin was a hero of destiny. Vin was a teenager, and Vin had all sorts of insecurities of her own. This story is written by an older Brandon, a Brandon who now has had kids. He's had a wife for a while. And I feel Wax kind of reflects that more adult feel to the entire story. It makes me think, what type of stories will we get from Brandon as he gets older in life, as he starts to have grandkids and stuff like that? I think it's going to be very interesting. We don't tend to get a lot of authors that are prolific throughout their life. The only one I can think of in my lifetime that has been writing for decades and decades that I'm somewhat aware of is Stephen King. But due to his the types of things he writes, I've never read him. I'd be very interested to know if people who have read him from his youth to very old age, where I'd be very interested to know if they feel they've noticed a difference in perspective as he himself has grown older. I think this is going to be a very interesting thing to examine with Brandon going forward. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for participating in this discussion. I hope you all enjoyed it. This is a bit experimental, so if you have any notes on what could improve things or not, I greatly appreciate it. Putting your notes in the comments here on YouTube. Make sure you give it an upvote. The next chapters we will read are going to be, I should have memorized this before, chapters 4 through 7. That's my notebook where I did everything. So I just want to thank you all for watching. Again, leave a comment in the YouTube comments section is what I was trying to say. Instead, it came out of something my grandparents would say. Leave a comment in the YouTube there, youngin'. Do that. It'd be great. Anyway, leave a comment and definitely give it an upvote. That will definitely help us in the algorithm. If you'd like to see more from me, you can always find me on twitch.tv/splicestream. Or if you're interested, I have a video recently of someone trying to climb the Amiibo Raid Boss Tower. If you've heard me talk about it. I'm doing great. Heard me talk about it a bit on the podcast. The link is in the description. Please go check out the video. I think you're going to like it. We should have another podcast episode up before soon. And yeah, that'll be great. See you guys next time. Be sure you get your comments in for chapters 4 through 7. Anyways, thanks for listening, everyone. And remember, there's always another secret.